A CBS News investigation is revealing how tens of thousands of children are being exposed to brutal conditions working in cobalt mines. Yesterday, we reported how the mineral is often unearthed in the Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC. Many top companies that make electronics need cobalt to power their products.
CBS News spoke with some of the companies that use cobalt lithium-ion batteries. All acknowledge problems with the supply chain, but say they require suppliers to follow responsible sourcing guidelines. Apple is an industry leader in the fight for responsible sourcing, but it says walking away from the DRC would do nothing to improve conditions for the people or the environment. Debora Patta followed one young boy home from a mine to understand the challenges he faces as the family's main provider.
Ziki Swazi has never been to school. He has no idea how to read or write, but he is an expert in washing cobalt. He is one of an estimated 40,000 children in the DRC getting paid a pittance to produce cobalt. Every evening, this 11-year-old returns home with $1 or $2 to provide for his family. I have to go and work there, he told us, because my grandma has a bad leg and she can't.
So you make the money for the family?
There is no one to look after her, he said. I am the one who helps. It's a common story in the DRC. Kids need to work to survive. I feel very bad because I can see my friends going to school, Ziki told us, and I'm struggling.
Well, this really is what children should be doing. Every child here has been rescued from a mine and put in a school receiving a decent education.
At the Good Shepherd Project, Sister Catherine Mutindi and her colleagues have rescued over 1,000 children from the mines. The kids who manage to get here are given a hot meal and a break from reality.
And how bad are the conditions in the mines?
It's horrible, and they know that it is very dangerous. So we have over 100 orphans, total orphans in this school, and they have lost the parents in the mines. Some of the children, when they came here, they have gone through accidents, they have broken limbs, and so they know the dangers.
This safe haven is funded by international charities, including USAID and, most recently, by a global cobalt supplier, Congo Dongfang Mining. Their last reported earnings are over $100 million. After child mine cobalt was exposed in their supply chain, CDM donated $71,000 to this project and say they've implemented responsible sourcing guidelines. Children here are taking classes, but also learning how to be kids again.
It's very difficult, and that is where we begin actually with the children. You know, helping them to begin to think about tomorrow. They say tomorrow because they think of today.
But tomorrow for Ziki has to wait.
When you go to sleep at night, before you go to sleep, that moment before you fall asleep, what do you think about?
My son.
School, he answers simply, just a dream for this child.
CBS News correspondent Debora Patta is in Johannesburg, South Africa. So, Debora, what were the children like that you met?
I think the most overwhelming thing was that the children we met who were mining and were working every single day had really, and it's a cliche, but they'd lost their childhood. To hear a child of 11 talk about having to go to work every day, about when he gets home, all he wants to do is take a bath and sleep, is the most distressing thing. I have children the same age of the young boy we spoke to, 11 years old. She's in school, they are not in school. And that's the most devastating thing, that these children, all they dream about is going to school. And our children complain about it. This is their dream, their only dream.
Debora, you know, a lot of people will wonder why are children being used for something like this, but just give us a sense of the economics surrounding these children and their families, what their parents, those relatives that depend on the meager earnings that they receive for doing this terrible work.
Yeah, that's a very good question, because it's not as if the children are always forced into this labor by, sort of slave drivers in the area. Sometimes it's a family that puts pressure on them, is that they simply can't take a child old enough to work in a mine out of the family pool of earning money for them all to live. So firstly, you find a situation where the family can't afford to send the child to school. Even though the schooling fees are at a minimum, they can't afford that minimum. So they need that child to go and work in the mine to contribute at most $1 or $2 a day. It's nothing, but that is what they need to live on. And as soon as the child is able, they all go and work in the mine. So often the biggest resistance is actually from the parents. They don't want to send the children to school because this is the only way they can earn extra money. So really what you need in that area is for government and NGOs to step in and try and revive the economy and find other means of employment and things for the parents to do, not just the mining, that gives them enough money to send these children to school. Secondly, it's an education process, educating parents to understand that if the children get an education, this is their way out. But all people are focused on is today. I need food today. I need to work today. My children need to work today because we have to survive. Nobody is thinking beyond that about the future, least of all the fact that that cobalt ends up in all our smartphones, laptops, and electronic cars.
What are conditions like that the kids are working in?
The conditions are shocking. I mean, you have a situation where this is hand mining, where they are mining by hand. There are dangerous pits that they go down. People die very often in collapsed mountains. To call them a mine is probably even the wrong term, because these are abandoned mines. There's no regulation. Please bear in mind that actually hand mining in the DRC is legal. The use of children is not legal, and officials make a great show sometimes of, shooing the children away, but they're back within a few seconds, and essentially everyone really turns a blind eye to it because it's what keeps the economy going there. But these conditions are dangerous, they are grueling, it's back-breaking work. Certainly, even for adults, this is difficult. Imagine for a child, it's unthinkable.
It really is, Debora, and we've talked about the economics surrounding the children and their families and perhaps some of the reasons that they choose to send their children to work in these mines. What would be the impact on the cobalt industry, on the technology that most Westerners and, in fact, the rest of the world uses if children were not used for this labor or if they were paid a living wage?
The interesting thing is that people are saying that there would be very little impact if children were not there because there would be adults to step into the breach. In fact, the most surprising thing was to find laborers from other countries, from Zimbabwe, from Zambia, who actually came to the DRC, who preferred coming and working in these horrific conditions to their own countries. So there is a huge demand for people wanting to work in that unregulated sphere. So there probably would be a minimal impact. Increasing the cost of selling the cobalt, that would probably have more of an impact. It would increase the economics surrounding it and so on. But in actual fact, probably very little impact. What people argue, though, is that there is a greater impact on the people living in the area, that if they weren't allowed to do this hand mining, if children weren't involved, that people would literally starve. And that is where the solution needs to be found. There needs to be a viable way to take these children out, put them in school, give them hot meals, and make sure they're getting an education and not working in mines. This is no place for a child.
That is so true. Debora Patta, great reporting. Thank you very much. So many of these companies have responded, and you can see full statements from some of the companies who have been connected to the supply chain on CBSNews.com, along with more video from this investigation.